Hello everyone and welcome to episode 23 of Sights on Sinnoh, the Diamond and Pearl anime podcast, following Ash and friends as we go through the Sinnoh region and on our way to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl coming out later this week. Again, I'm joined by Greg. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good.
Surviving, getting through the summer.
Yeah. I mean, so, weather took a turn. We're now in the 70s, which is a nice break from the bajillion degrees that it was.
Mm-hmm.
So things are good.
I'm, confused about our weather because I'm on the third floor, so it, could be 10 degrees cooler outside, but I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know.
So, we'll see what happens. I'll try to get outside more. That'll help, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, at least, pop out a door.
Yeah.
Enjoy the forest as we make our way to this glorious river that we'll be talking about in this episode.
We'll be cruising along, and it'll be a fun time. At least for me. We'll see. But this week we are talking about episode 39 and 40 of Diamond and Pearl. Feels crazy to say that we're there already. Overall, this is actually the 505th episode of the Pokémon anime. It's titled SteamBoat Willies, and the blurb reads, on the way to Hearthome City, Ash and his friends spot a sightseeing steamboat and decide to take a ride, but the old man in charge of the boat informs them that it doesn't depart until noon, which leaves our three trainers with plenty of time to go shop at a nearby Pokémart. All their Pokémon stay on the boat to have some fun in the meantime. So, right off the bat, title, what do you think?
Right off the bat, the title is bad. Why? It is, again, none of the titles of the Diamond and Pearl series actually make sense. Why are you referencing Steamboat Willie, a Disney property? I mean, granted, it is the first cartoon to ever feature Mickey Mouse, but, you just let's call it Steamboat Willies, because there's a steamboat in this one.
When else would you use that title?
Never, because something more famous has it.
That's fair.
I mean, the Japanese translation of Pikachu's caretaking is a little more accurate to the absolute chaos that happens in this episode. This terrible, terrible episode.
It could have been called Pikachu and Piplup Parenting. Something like that.
Yes. Boy.
Going right into this spectacular episode, in my opinion. This is just our heroes trying to get to Hearthome, and for some reason this takes the whole journey is questionable because they're trying to get on a boat, and
but they're let's take the sightseeing destination because we're in no hurry, which I guess is fine. Sure, that's cool.
Dawn does have a contest though she has to make, so I mean,
there's definitely a deadline, but apparently not a big one.
They have some time to spare, supposedly. So
so then they board this gigantic river steamboat.
Yeah, I feel like this should be on the ocean cruise, right?
Nobody has locked a door or put up a barrier or done anything, but just has a boat open for a bunch of kids to wander onto to look at how big it is.
The instruments are just out there in the open.
Because that's what musicians do.
Yeah.
Just leave their unattended instruments in the humid river air. Because that's how you make good music. So then they're just wandering around this incredibly huge space, and then they release their Pokemon, because of course they do. And then the Pokemon start running around and playing ring toss and doing a bunch of weird things, and then they finally see the owner of the ship asleep.
Yeah.
It's oh, hey, we just trespassed on your ship. And he's okay, it won't leave till noon.
They're talking to him from the ship. I'm
the ship.
Why?
You're on my ship. You're on my you inappropriate children are on my ship. Please get off.
He is not mad in the least, though. They apologize for waking him up. That's about it.
Yeah, that's about it.
And then they're oh, you don't take off till then? Well, let's go and get some stuff from the Pokémart. And as they're about to go, Ash is immediately convinced to leave everyone behind instead because they're all having such a great time. Which, to be fair, it looks like they're all having a ton of fun.
Okay. It has been 500 episodes of an evil rocket team constantly trying to steal your Pokemon. And you're like, here's a narcoleptic old man on an abandoned boat. Let's leave all of our Pokemon here.
I'll be perfectly secure.
Because they're trustworthy, which turns out to be not true in the next 5 minutes.
They turn their backs and it all comes crashing down.
Yeah, so they go to the Pokemart and Don's like, "Yeah, I want to buy stuff," which is like the weirdest sidebar to just say they made it to the mart.
Mm-hmm. Like typically it's just Brock or someone that goes and
yeah. And then of course Team Rocket's like, "Hey, they've abandoned all their Pokemon. Let's swoop in because that's what happens 500 episodes into the Pokemon world."
What's weird is they don't even like go as far as trying to just snatch everyone up immediately in nets or cages. They go with the most elaborate.
Bizarre plan right here when they just are like the Pokemon are like in the dining room and are wrecking
yes
house.
Oh,
and I'm like,
man.
at what point did you all think, oh, our Pokemon are responsible, let's leave them alone? Because literally 2 minutes after you have turned your back, they are wrecking a ship.
There's a lot of questionable property damage that I don't know who's paying for here, but
they steal costumes.
Yes. Okay. Are those costumes Pokemon size? That was my biggest question because it didn't look like it. Like when you just see them at first, I'm like, what?
Yeah. They shrink. Because this is the Pokemon world, there is no performer that doesn't perform without a Pokemon, right? Like, they're going to have matching costumes. So they steal those. Pachirisu, jerk of the century, is like, I'm going to steal them balloons and I'm going to fly like Staravia.
Don't you want to fly like Staravia?
No. I would like to fly safely and not...
Pachirisu just didn't think this through clearly. But
no.
This is actually, for Pokemon historians in the future, the first appearance of the held item air balloon, just so you know.
It is. Then he flies into the kitchen and isn't content with just flying. Patricio is now like, I am going to wreck this kitchen. I am going to make everything drop. I'm going to knock over stacks of plates. I am just going to wreck house. Why? Because I can.
And all the power of flight has gone to its head, clearly.
And then Pikachu, of course, is there like, I can catch every plate in the world. And Patricio flies into the engine room.
And hits the console.
Gets scared by the thing that balloons do, which is pop. And then...
just uses discharge, basically, to...
uses discharge and somehow knocks themselves unconscious.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand, that plot point, but whatever. And then, of course, starts the engine, and then the real damage begins. Because every plate crashes everywhere.
Pikachu is somehow not bleeding.
Yeah, just avoided Quick Attack avoids
okay.
plates.
Good to know.
Obvious.
I thought Pikachu was like almost going to save the day there, and then no.
And then Pachiricho's like, "Yeah, get wrecked, Pikachu. I'm going to cause more property damage.
I'm the new electric rodent. This is my ship now.
This is my show." And then Team Rocket's like, "Hey, we're dressed up as clowns."
Not even. They're like TV show, like kids show performers kind of thing.
Yeah, like Plusle and Minum, why? And Jesse's like, hey, I'm
the host. It makes or something.
No sense. And they're like, hey, let's get you to go into this doorway that says welcome, but will actually lead to your doom.
The fun house that locks from behind.
Yeah, but then they drop the key, And then they have to chase after the key, and then all the Pokemon inside realize, hey, this is a cage, and walk back out.
I thought like they're going to explain they somehow opened it, but no, like Team Rocket just chases the key around as Pachirisu like is accidentally making the ship go left and right, and then they just come out of the cage.
And then they're mad, and then of course then they start attacking Team Rocket, and that causes even more damage to the ship. Because Team Rocket blasts off like they do, and then they of course run out on deck, and they're like, oh, we're heading downriver. And the old man wakes up again.
Where's the crew?
What steamboat is not anchored or tied down to a dock?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that dock is wrecked. The anchor is ripped out of the side of the steamboat. He is minorly concerned that his boat is running away from him.
There's, like, no way this would pass a safety inspection.
No! Not even! And then they're like, oh, hey, bring my ship back. And then everybody shows up from the mart, and they all see a ship with their Pokemon going on. And they don't even look at the guy like, this is literally your fault.
Yeah, no one blames each other. I think there's a lot of, like, legal liability that's being glossed over here.
Just ignored. And then they're like, okay, well, you're never going to be fast enough, so take my Mantine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's faster than a Lapras. Like, I'm trying to think of other Pokemon they could ride to get there on water.
It's apparently faster than a steam-powered ship.
Yeah.
So they rush after the ship, and of course the ship is wrecked, and now it's heading towards a waterfall to get wrecked even more. And Mantine drops him off on the deck, and then Dawn literally takes a moment during impending doom to tell her Pokemon the costumes they just stole look super cute.
Ash does color out on it, though.
I mean, somebody has to.
They acknowledge it in at least that moment where he's like, hey, Dawn, not now.
No. So then they're like, okay, we have to turn the ship around. So instead of going towards one natural disaster, let's make a second natural disaster, a whirlpool. And I'm not quite sure what Ash or Dawn are thinking in that moment.
Yeah, there's a few things here. So, before they even get on the ship, Pikachu and Piplup make the executive decision to send Staravia off with Pachirisu and Happiny because they're apparently the youngest people in this group. The youngest Pokemon.
I'll give you Happiny, but Pachirisu caused this. Pachirisu, if anybody deserves to go down with the steamboat, it is Pachirisu.
Maybe they just thought Pachirisu could somehow make this worse, so let's just avoid that possibility. Yeah, there's a combination of Whirlpool, which for some reason is like 10 times the size that we've ever seen Whirlpool be. And Ice Beam making like a glacier-sized plot of frozen water.
I'm like, okay, so you make the whirlpool to pull you to the whirlpool, but then it's not gonna. It's like the idea that it's gonna like shoot you around the other side. So instead, they form, the iceberg. Surely a thing that has never caused a ship to sink in the universe that we would know of, and somehow having a giant iceberg makes the ship easier to turn.
I'm still trying to figure out how. Like, it cuts out the camera to, like, from, like, a helicopter view.
It's just like, whoop.
Like, oh,
okay.
Sure, I guess. And then a rock shows up out of nowhere. Like a huge boulder.
Out of nowhere. They missed it the first time, and yet now, because they're heading back upriver.
Yeah.
So they had to have passed it the first time, but now it's back, and they're like, how did that get there?
So they use Turtwig's Razor Leaf, I believe, and...
Yep.
Ash, Pikachu.
And Pikachu's like, hey, I'll use electric on the ground.
I guess, like, it works
and Weasel
somewhat.
Is like, I'll do Sonic Boom.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It blows up. And of course, giant chunks of rock are now falling towards the ship.
Mm-hmm. But luckily,
Mantine breaks it into smaller, large boulders, which somehow the ship can handle.
there's so many close calls in this, like, 2-minute section. I'm, like, amazed that there wasn't some other random Pokemon that came out of the ship to help them.
I mean, Arceus had to help at this point, because this whole series of events is the wildest thing. They get back to the dock, and the old man is like, I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me? They just wrecked your only money-making venture.
Hey, we don't know that. This guy could just be sleeping because he knows he has 10 other cruise ships somewhere in Kalos or Alola making him bank. And this is like his little side gig.
I mean, it could be. He clearly didn't care about it. Not only do they never go on board to, like, assess the damages or, hey, there's a giant hole in the side of my ship. Also, I guess there's no noon tour because you wrecked my steamboat.
Also, they never tell him about Team Rocket, as far as I can tell.
Nah.
And no one knows, right?
That nobody knows. Nobody knows that happened. They are all just like, well, I guess things went bad on all sides, so good luck. We're going to go do this contest. You're going to, I don't know, have $50,000 worth of repairs on this ship.
We just won't, you won't sue us and we won't sue you. Deal? Deal.
Deal. We out, old man. That'll teach you to fall asleep.
Apparently he still feels like he's culpable at some level because I guess he gives them a free ride to Heart Home on the ship. Look, so for me, I know it sounds like a really bashing on this episode, but I really love the middle part, which we totally skipped over. But
which of them wrecking the ship?
Like, them playing dress up, Pikachu and the Pokemon, like, playing the instruments, the ring toss scene, just like...
Crime's not cute.
Look.
Crime is not cute. It is a crime. They are committing crimes.
But zero malicious intent is there, as far as I can tell. It's
okay,
adorable.
If you came into my house when I wasn't here and wrecked all of my things, and I came home, you're like, I was cute doing it, I would still have you arrested.
But I don't care about that. The guy isn't even mad at the end, so it's all fine.
It's not.
Look, do we ever see the ship again? No, I can tell you that right now.
Because it sank. It sank from the structural damage caused by Ash and Dawn's negligence.
Hey, we never see the steam engine. There's no proof of that. Somehow they are able to fix the console, though, after Pachirisu's discharge.
Yeah, sure.
So,
I mean...
Look, if you just want to not think about the financial repercussions and see our Pokemon have a fun time together right after Happini's hatched, this is the episode for you.
I was on board with it like being just like a wild filler episode up until the end when they were all like, well, mistakes were made all around. Have a good life. And I'm like,
yeah.
Nah. Like, no. You don't.
Okay, you know what could have made this episode maybe better and more redeeming for these characters is if Team Rocket was trying to steal the ship or something on the ship, and all these Pokemon prevented that, or even unwittingly did that. Because the whole waterfall thing is just like, what?
Yeah, it's just extra added danger. The thing is like that they're like, oh, our Pokemon are well behaved, and they do some things that are like, okay, you would, this is kind of what, they're just poking around, but not causing damage. It's the whole Pachirisu literally wrecking every ounce of the ship that I'm like, this isn't cute. Like, if they played dress up and then, like, put things back, or, at all lived up to this completely false view that Ash and Dawn have of their well-behaved Pokemon, like, And instead, it's just a bunch of chaos, and every once in a while, Piplup and Pikachu are like, oh, we should parent.
Yeah. Like,
ineffectively.
At the beginning, it seems promising because the moment they turn around after promising to be responsible, like, Happiny and Pachirisu are about to jump off the ship, and they stop that. They're all, like, extremely concerned. But then from there, Piplup just kind of gets distracted by the magic stuff, and Pikachu goes to join a band.
Yeah. Pikachu's like, enough of this life.
Yeah.
I'm level 100. I got new things to do.
He's gonna step into the music field now. Like every major popular YouTuber.
Yeah. I mean, he knows that, in the remakes, he gets pop star.
Oh, yeah. So, overall, what would you rate SteamBoat Willies episode 39 of Diamond and Pearl?
It's not the worst one. I'm putting it a 4. Like, it actively made me mad at the end. I'm like, this is garbage. You've destroyed this person's ship. There should be some sort of repercussions after you willingly left your Pokemon in danger and they destroyed this man's property.
Yeah, like, because you see Pachirisu kind of doing things that result in destruction, but arguably it's not in control, but you have the show spends so much time looking at that destruction, and Pikachu like that being a stake for Pikachu and then immediately kind of discarding it. That's the part that feels weird in terms of the moving goalpost of what this episode set up and what it turned into. So I was actually probably going to give it a higher rating, but seeing it with this perspective that you brought today, I probably will give it like a 5.5.
Yeah, it's just a bad filler episode, too. Like, literally nothing happens to change. Like, you don't really see much of their personalities. Nothing really expands anybody's characters. Like, if Piplup and Pikachu were much more parental and trying to get things in control, like, that would have been something for Piplup.
Yeah.
But instead, it's so patchy. And I just feel like, okay, you just had somebody just was like, we need an episode here. Let's put them on a boat.
Like, I would have bought it more if we just didn't have Team Rocket and we got to see the Pokemon more than in just like one or two scenes do things. Like it was starting to give me the vibe of some of the early Pokemon shorts that would come before the movies. Like the one with the Pichu before the Entei movie, or even like the first one when they go to the park and it's like Pikachu Summer Vacation. But then it like feels the need to make it more dangerous, I guess, or like higher stakes, even though you could just keep it there and see what challenges Pikachu and Piplup are facing just with having to manage all these new members. You just got Happiny joining the team. What does a baby bring into this mix? But that's kind of not as developed as it could have been.
Yeah, it just,
So, I definitely see your point, and just like, this became a disappointing and also stressful episode. But there is some fun that I think was in the origins of this that kind of got lost along the way. But anyway, we go on to a very different episode called Top Down Training, episode 40 of the Diamond and Pearl anime, which focuses on a fan favorite character.
Yeah.
When the word gets out that Champion League Master Cynthia is in town, our heroes can't resist a chance to meet her in person. But Paul is also in town, and he can't resist challenging Cynthia to a battle. The blurb right there, it kind of just glances over the fact that we learn about Cynthia for the first time in the show from a TV show of her battling Lucian, I think. Lucian, one of the two.
Lucian,
thank you.
Yeah.
And they did meet Lucian a few episodes ago, who helped, quote unquote, listen to that episode because JM and I have thoughts with Weasel and Dawn's relationship. That means they know how strong he is. They have an idea of what the Elite Four is and how the champion works in this world. And as they're watching the show, people just come in the room and they're like, hey, Cynthia's in Amity Square. Let's go check it out. So they're like, oh yeah, we have to go see this too. The weird detail is Amity Square is just north of Hearthome City. But they won't get to Hearthome City for like 7 more episodes. Even though they're right there. So apparently Amity Square is much further away than is seen in the games here.
This is the region that has the legendaries of time and space. So we don't know what traveling in Sinnoh is actually like. There could be pocket dimensions left and right.
Yeah.
And you just fall into a wormhole for a while, and you're like, it took us 7 days to get to Hearthome. And you're like, yeah, that sounds about right.
They just gotta keep an eye on that watch and map at all times.
At all times, because you could be sucked into the shadow world at any moment.
Oh no! Oh man, that's a fanfic waiting to happen. But as they get to the square, we do get a short little scene of Cynthia doing very typical Cynthia things, such as buying ice cream from Team Rocket.
Yes.
What did you think about this little interaction here?
The thing is like what it does, what those little moments do is there's so much character development in that one little interaction that they do with nobody else, and they can do it because showing how indecisive she is outside of battle shows what type of person that is. Like when it is inconsequential or there are a lot of options, like in her just everyday life, she is not focused on like trivial things. Like she can't make a decision, but absolutely this master battler, like that is who she is. And when you take moments like that and you sort of like you've had her battle and then you wedge this between another battle, you sort of really get a scope of what type of person this is, and they should really do that more with everybody else.
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was really strong, very like throwaway if you're just trying to focus on every big moment, but it's these little tiny pieces of the story that kind of create this bigger world and narrative about who this is, even before we see her. And now we see her on the TV, but like,
right.
It's just really funny all around. And maybe Team Rocket does become a bit of a focus there as you kind of hear their side of it afterwards. But it definitely sets up a bit more of who this is and some layers that I don't think you really see in the games.
Yeah.
So here she goes over to some of the ruins and feels her hands on this ancient plate that apparently is not like guarded by any historic society whatsoever. No. It's like just ancient text underneath a drawing of Dialga and Palkia. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, look, it's a champion. And their heroes arrive just in time to see Paul come up to her and challenge her to a battle, which she accepts.
Yeah. And this is also good. This is like a good Paul moment. Like, it's also sort of like they develop the world around champions as well, because let's face it, the crowd is full of jerks.
Oh man, yeah, they're awful.
Everybody in there is just like, how dare you do the thing that we all do? Like, how dare you go out of order is really what they're complaining about.
Right.
Like, Cynthia, like the idea that you have to have all these badges get through the Elite Four to only then can you battle Cynthia is like this. It's like this weird, there is only one way to do it, and this is the way, and how dare you break that way.
So,
and you would think they would shut up when Cynthia says
Mhm.
yes, but they don't.
This is the thing.
And I hate the crowd so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
And the battle it's a good battle. And I will say this also is a good moment for Ash, because Ash does tell the crowd to shut up. Like, good on you, Ash. Like, really.
Mature moment for him.
Yeah, it's a good moment. And, the battle is interesting. It's a pretty good battle, but as predicted, it's horribly one-sided.
Totally. Though, well, the attitude of the crowd definitely sucks. I wonder if part of it comes from what we got from Lucian in his episode, which was the explanation of how the Champion League works, where if someone beats the Sinnoh League, they're able to battle the Elite Four, and if they beat the Elite Four, they're able to battle the Champion. And in that episode, Ash actually challenges him to a battle, and he asks, "Hey Ash, are you competing in the Sinnoh League?" And he's like, "Yeah." "Well, you can battle me after you win the Sinnoh League." Like, he's very much like, "Nope, that's not the policy we have here. I can't do that for you."
But she says yes.
Right, but like, technically she's not supposed to according to the rules that Lucian established.
Yeah, but she's the champion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Lucian could also say, "Yeah," I could have also said, "Yeah, I will bend the rules." Also, this is an official battle. Like, the fact that they are all strictly enforcing like an arbitrary rule after the very champion said, "Yeah, let's do it," is just like, it's so wild that like, okay, this world is that strict, huh? Like, and they are not adults; these are kids.
Yeah, so it definitely goes more into just them being awful humans,
right?
Than strict rule followers in this situation.
And then you really have to feel bad for Chimchar in this episode.
Oh man, that's how he starts. He brings out Chimchar against Garchomp. Something he has for like a fourth of effectiveness against.
Which also doesn't explain what the thought process is there. I mean, I can assume that was like, I will capture you in fire.
So
spin.
That's interesting that you bring that up. They explain the thought process here for Paul in about 10 episodes. So
okay.
We'll get there actually, but it is very interesting that you point that out, because everyone's shocked. Even Cynthia's like, "What are you doing, man?
What are you doing? What are you doing? And why are you so bad at being a decent human?"
Yeah, and as far as we know, it's like, hit him with fire spin, do like damage over time, I guess. And you actually do see the fire spin kind of maintain its form, as both Chimchar and Garchomp use Dig to go underground, and the fire kind of stays around him, which is kind of neat. But then right after this, immediately Chimchar is knocked out in one hit, which is the pattern for the rest of Paul's team here. That includes the Weavile, which he sends out immediately, and Dawn pulls out the Pokédex for. I think it gets hit out by Dragon Rush after Garchomp dodges some blizzards, and then he sends out Murkrow, which seems very out of nowhere until we kind of learn later what's going on there. As Murkrow uses Haze, it uses that time to get around Garchomp and go in for a Sky Attack, but Giga Impact counters it pretty easily and knocks out Murkrow. So then, with a smirk on his face, Paul sends out his Torterra, which everyone is pretty surprised about, actually. What did you think about Torterra's debut here?
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's like, cool, it's Torterra. Why? And like,
yeah, like, were you confused at all because we saw that Paul had a Chimchar and now he has this other starter from Sinnoh?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Fine. It still doesn't really make a whole lot of sense what you're doing, Paul.
Right.
They say, "Oh, you're taking advantage of
Giga Impact having that
of Giga
rest
Impact
period.
having a rest period to use Giga Drain, which is cool.
Yeah, I'm like, that's fine, but Garchomp's also dragon, so it's kind of just neutral damage if you're even thinking about it in those terms.
And also, your big play was to burn through 4 of your Pokemon for this one moment?
Yeah, exactly. I guess he thought Weavile might have a chance because it's Ice type, but that is immediately taken out, so he's like, alright, let's make it use Giga Impact on my Murkrow.
You're lucky that happened?
Yeah, exactly. Unless he's studying, but it's never super explained how much preparation he did going into this. She just showed up at the square and Paul did too, so
yeah.
I don't know how much he knew that she was even there. But he did have a particular set of Pokemon, which we'll get into in a second. But Torterra is then able to fire off Frenzy Plant, which seems to just cause a devastating explosion in the middle of the square. But Garchomp is fine. It's able to just block everything. And that's the part that I think is a little underwhelming for me in this battle, is that there isn't a lot of strategic work on Cynthia's part. A lot of it is just I'm so strong, I'm just gonna negate your attacks on me.
Yeah.
Which,
nope.
Yeah, just
nope.
Denied. Frenzy Plant?
Nope.
Get out of here. It then does an epic jump into the air and comes down on Torterra's head with a Brick Break and knocks it out in one shot just like the rest, which leads Paul to resign the battle. Cynthia doesn't say much throughout this whole battle. She just has this little smile when Frenzy Plant comes out, and it gets blocked. But then she's just yeah, that's the battle. Good job. She's very nonchalant about it.
Yeah, she's it was actually, what's cool about that moment is compared to the ice cream moment, it is so good at showing how decisive and cool she is in the thing that she's super, super good at.
Yes. Her area of expertise.
Yeah, so it's really nice to have that juxtaposition, and then the crowd is rude and then Ash calls him out, which is good. And then in another moment of really, Paul?
Yeah.
He's I'm not going to go to the Pokemon Center.
Because Ash calls him out. He's hey, that's not the direction of the Pokemon Center. And he just gets ignored until Cynthia steps in.
And says, no, you're going to the Pokemon Center.
Yeah. It's you should really go. And he's all right. And then they all show up. And Nurse Joy,
Nurse Joy is hey, I got surgery to do, so...
Right? Hold up.
Bye!
Since when do you do surgery, Nurse Joy?
And also, how hard is it to put them into the machine and hit a button?
Yeah. Maybe she just does that for the plebs. If it's a champion, she's no, you get the full treatment. But
you get the full treatment.
I can't, so...
You get the A-quality healthcare, not the C-quality of me just sort of filling it up and sending it back out there with a wink and a good luck.
Sinnoh League really paying those premiums.
Yeah. Nurse Joy's okay, have fun. And so Cynthia's I'm also excellent at healing things.
Yeah, I think she's really... cool. She has a really cool delivery here when she says there's no option, I have to do it myself and I'll do it, and everyone's just what? And
how are you so human and personable?
Right?
And then Brock is Brock and Krogunk's gonna murder him. But then Cynthia smiles at Krogunk and Krogunk's okay, we're letting this happen.
Right. It's oh no, she's in total control of the situation. I don't have anything to worry about.
Brock is literally not a threat here.
Yes.
Let him be the fool. Yeah, she does all the potions healing, and then Chimchar falls asleep.
She gives it medicine and explains to everyone how Torterra got hit on the head, but that impact sends a shockwave through its whole body, so you also have to take care of the trees and anywhere else that has a fever, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's... Or you could just put them in their Pokeball and put them on the machine.
No, that's the sea level treatment.
But it works.
I guess sometimes it's never consistent when they need
I know.
treatment versus healing, but
Healing.
I don't know.
The healthcare in the Pokemon universe is definitely plot driven and not actual ailment driven.
No. Questionable at best.
Yeah, and then Paul says, "Oh, Torterra was my starter," and I don't know why Cynthia's like, "Oh, hey, you've been around the world." Except, I'm like, is it because Paul has a Murkrow and a Weavile? Like, I don't feel like that's
well. Okay, so
hard to get.
There is a line earlier where they're about to battle, and he challenges her, and she says a line where like, "Oh, you must have transferred from another league." I'm wondering if she somehow put it together that this guy who's challenging her is clearly more experienced than an average trainer in Sinnoh, but like she doesn't have a lot of information to go with, so I don't even know how she would get that.
I don't know, how would you know that? It's so weird.
It's
that whole exchange is just like how did you know that? Also, I'm pretty sure you could find Murkrow somewhere in Sinnoh.
Yes, if you're playing Diamond, yeah.
Like, okay, and I think
Sneasel is also available up by Lake Acuity.
Yeah. So, what about those two Pokemon said you traveled? Whatever. I was just like, okay, fine.
Maybe she's just able to tell that they're all strong because she does mention they're well trained and.
Yeah, but people challenge the Elite Four in your own area and never travel the world. It's just a weird moment that I was just like, okay, well, I mean, it was basically like, hey, let's have Paul tell his story to make him slightly human and not a horrible, horrible, horrible person.
Like at some point, if he had mentioned how many badges he has, and she had brought up like, oh, for the number of badges you have compared to like how well trained these Pokemon are, maybe, but we only hear that from Ash, so I don't know if maybe that's something that didn't come through in the dubbed version of this episode, which might be true, given that Ash does have that conversation, but it's kind of cut off.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird, but yeah, we get to learn about Paul's, that Torterra was his starter.
In Sinnoh, and he caught the other two Pokemon, Sneasel and Murkrow, or presumably, I guess it was a Sneasel before it evolved into Weavile, and that was in his time traveling through Kanto, Hoenn, and Johto, all regions that Ash has been to, and apparently participated in the leagues as well, but did not win any of them.
So, which begs the question, they're roughly the same age. Like, I don't think Paul is supposed to be that much older than Ash.
Right.
So, he had to have done them in a different order than Ash did?
Yes, that's what my thought was too.
So, you have to sort of assume that, because they sort of listed that he went through Hoenn, Johto, and Kanto. Like, that's the order he did them in. Except the Johto part would have overlapped, and they definitely would have been aware of each other.
I assume he did Hoenn, Kanto, Johto, and...
It has to be.
Right.
And they just missed each other?
Yeah, like, they never overlapped, and I think that would explain why he has two Johto Pokemon with him.
Yeah.
Though we do see another Johto Pokemon in this party that was caught on screen in Sinnoh. So that could totally be a bad theory. But that's my assumption here. And I think it's cool to establish that we have a rival for Ash who's done the same amount of things he has. Especially at this point in his career.
Has been just as much of a failure as Ash.
Oh man. Hey Ash. Well, Ash did well. That comes up later. That's a very interesting point you have because Paul gets really mad at Ash for having done something that he hasn't been able to do. But we'll talk about that in like 3 seasons. So
and he mentions that he caught Chimchar here, which is Which is, again, one of those things that the anime does that the games don't do. Like, they do exist in the wild.
Right. They're not extinct.
Cynthia compliments Chimchar, and Paul is all being a jerk about it. And then, again, Ash and Paul get into their standard fight about, its feelings versus utility. And then Cynthia's like, "Shh, children, sweet children, you're both dumb. Let's go look at this stone tablet."
Yeah, which we were at like 10 minutes ago.
Right, and so they all go to the stone tablet.
Field trip.
Apparently abandoning the Nurse Joy, who's in the middle of intensive surgery.
Okay.
And there's no other Nurse Joy, so they're just like, bye.
Did Brock do anything? He said he was going to help.
No.
But I think that gets dropped real quick.
Yeah. Brock doesn't help. And then they go back and they actually read the tablet, which is like...
a life-changing moment for Cynthia, apparently, in her youth.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting... when two lives meet, they're never the same after, which is basically what that whole thing is. And like,
I think the quote is, "When one life meets another life, something will be born," which they repeat like 3 times for some reason. But Cynthia's backstory here is that she really wanted to be the most powerful at first when she was growing up, and then when she saw this, it kind of changed her perspective on everything, and she really wanted to now see how Pokemon were each their own individual character and person. And that's where she took on a new perspective that seemed to even make her stronger inadvertently, which I thought was kind of an interesting way of her goal being subverted but still achieved at the same time.
Yeah, and it also sort of points out like, hey, you two can have different opinions and you'll come to a new understanding. Meanwhile, back at the Pokemon Center, while Nurse Joy is...
finishing surgery?
Neck deep in surgery.
Oh, okay.
Team Rocket shows up. Yoink.
Out of all these Pokemon, we're going to take this Chimchar, I guess.
Yeah. They steal Chimchar, and then they're going to steal all the others, and Nurse Joy comes out of surgery and is like, hey, stop.
And they're like, bye.
Bye. And so they grab Chimchar and run, and Paul is like, okay.
Yeah, like they just start walking back to the Pokemon Center and see Team Rocket making off with Chimchar. Paul's the last one out of all these people running towards Team Rocket. And I'm like, you jerk. Like, come on.
Chimchar uses Ember, which is not great because Chimchar just woke up from a coma. And Paul sends out Ursaring to do Hyper
Oh
Beam,
my gosh.
The move that only works well in the anime.
Yeah.
And then they blast off, and Chimchar falls to the ground and gets hurt again.
Chimchar just leaps from the balloon at the last second. Like, it had no idea this was going to happen.
Right. And then Paul's like, you're useless.
Yeah, like, how dare you get captured? And Ash and Dawn immediately point out what everyone is thinking as they watch this episode, which is Chimchar was sleeping. How much of a jerk can you be?
And this is the one thing that I will knock
Cynthia?
On Cynthia's character for it, because she's like, let's not have this argument. All that matters is Chimchar is okay.
Like,
no. I mean, there's more things that matter.
Yeah.
Paul is actively abusing Chimchar in front of you, and you're not going to comment on that.
Yeah, Cynthia has this kind of hands-off approach that I'm assuming comes from like a hope that she can change this guy, and in like a very role model way that's not super active,
confrontational.
Yeah.
It's just a moment of, it is that weird moment of, that happens way too much in actual society, of an authority figure brushing over an uncomfortable moment and just not dealing with it. Like, it's just let's just never talk about this again.
And like
Chimchar fell 50 feet and got hurt again. But all that matters is that he's mostly fine.
Mm-hmm.
And we should all go back to spend the night at the center. And Paul's like, I guess.
Right. Well, she tells specifically Paul to do that and kind of throws in a line there that's like, you want to get stronger too, right? And I don't know if she's trying to like bait him there with like, hey, this is your goal and this will help, but like not super full-heartedly believing that lie.
Yeah, it's weird. And then...
But it works
the center
somehow.
It works. I mean, Paul's like, sure, whatever. I mean, I suppose if the champion says go rest, you're like, fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't going to heal my Pokemon until you told me to, and now I'm not going to go sleep until you told me to.
And we see him in a closing shot inside the window of the Pokemon Center, just surrounded by all his Pokemon, and like it's the most claustrophobic thing ever because Torterra is taking up most of the room.
Like, you just really hate. Like, these are all things to really get you to actively dislike Paul,
Yes.
and it does a very, very good job at doing that.
Super effective, some might say. But anyway.
And then they see the orb thing. The news is
Yeah.
like, hey, we found the Lustrous orb.
Which I guess is related here. They find it in Celestic Town, which is something we'll get to later. But like, well, this news channel just has the most convenient things on TV. Like, timing is impeccable here. It shows the champion. It shows this excavation site that then moves the plot forward. And we get a goodbye from Cynthia as she goes off to Celestic Town because she's super into this stuff, kind of mirroring her character in the games.
Yeah.
Given that her grandparents are involved with this kind of history of the Sinnoh region. You know, heroes take off on their journey through Hearthome. Ash, not really understanding the quote that she read about Two Lives meeting, but being like, I love Pokemon as much as you do, so I'm just gonna keep doing my thing.
Right.
And that's kind of it. It just wraps up with everyone taking off. Paul being put on timeout in the Pokemon Center. And, pretty much just setting up for what's gonna happen later in this season. We got an intro on Cynthia, a bit of things actively in the works in the background with the Lustrous Orb and the Adamant Orb. We're still not sure if Paul's going to change. We know Ash is still geared up to go and is probably encouraged more than ever now to do his best and take down Paul later. And overall, just a really good episode in my opinion.
Yeah. It's a very solid. Things actually happened in this episode, which is a solid move for the series.
I think the weakest part is probably Team Rocket. Like, it kind of sets up the moment of Paul really showcasing his abusive side in a very explicit way. So I'll give it that. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of want to see more Cynthia if this is what we're getting.
Yeah, absolutely. Cynthia's the best character.
I'll probably give this episode an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd give it an 8. It is a solid move the plot forward. Things actually happen. There are good character developments. You really, 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 really end up hating Paul, which is like overall good for the series. Like it's one of the times when you're like, okay, this is him being so awful makes how awful Ash is less awful. Like,
yeah,
like you actually have somebody to sort of dump a lot of your frustrations into, and it does sort of
it gives Ash a lot more of a focus,
right,
and character-driven plot than he's ever had.
It makes his point of view more clear because it was like, we'll do this as friends, but like everybody you met was always like, oh, we all do this as friends. So to have somebody who really doesn't do that and doesn't do that as a consistent reoccurring character in the series really helps define what Ash's view of Pokemon is,
right,
and how he interacts with the world. So like, as much as you really, 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 really hate Paul, it is good that you really hate Paul to make you like and understand Ash better.
Exactly. like, just in terms of actual development in the show as a whole, Ash, in terms of rivals, has really only had Gary.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't even battle Gary for 5 seasons, basically.
Gary wasn't as big of a jerk either.
Like, Gary's relationship with Ash also had nothing to do with Pokemon.
Yeah.
It was all about their childhood rivalry.
Yeah.
We don't even see, like, I think it's kind of a running, like, gag almost that we don't see any of Gary's Pokemon when we should until, like, the very end of Johto or Kanto where we see Eevee. Within the span of 12 episodes, we see Paul more times than we see Gary that whole season.
Right.
And we see him battle Ash more than we see him battle Gary.
Yeah.
I kind of like also that we see Gary in this very season with a very different take. To kind of further drive in that point, that Paul is very much a proper rival for Ash.
Yeah. Like, Paul is actually a really good foil.
Yeah.
He is just a much better... The problem with Gary is Gary was just cruel to Ash.
Yeah.
Both basically had the same thought around Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Paul isn't really cruel to Ash. He's just a jerk and is cruel in his life. So, like, it's a very different experience because it's not just focused on Ash, but you can pretend that he's a really good guy because he trains his Pokemon well and is really talented.
Mm-hmm.
He just doesn't like Ash. Like, Paul is does not come across as a good person.
No.
And that's, I think, really an important difference for how to help grow and crystallize who Ash is.
Exactly. And I think this is the first time we've seen or talked about Paul with episodes that you've been on. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Have you seen some of the past episodes that Paul has been in?
I've watched some of them, but
I think even if you don't watch any of the other ones, this is a great one.
Yeah, this is a very good one.
Trivia here, do you know that the voice actor for Cynthia is the same voice actor as Dawn's?
Oh! Yeah, I mean, there's only so many voices.
Yeah, that's fair. Oh my god, there's a disaster of an Electrike episode that don't watch, but like they use Brock to voice the Electrike and they use James to voice this other character, and it's just it's
just bad.
Yeah, it's Uncanny Valley. Oh yeah, okay. Did any of the music sound recognizable to you?
I want to say yes, but all Pokemon anime music blends together
Fair.
in my brain because it's mostly all forgettable. Is there a specific reason? Like, did they reuse music?
They used music from Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, which is a big returning one this season, since that's one of the most recent movies. And also from Mewtwo Strikes Back, which I could have sworn was happening during the battle, but apparently happened when Brock's Croagunk came out of its ball for some reason. Because there's some really intense music just kind of thrown out through here, which I thought was appropriate for the most part, actually.
Yeah.
This is one of the few episodes where Piplup does not appear. So, again...
Piplup not needed.
No.
Piplup is in jail for crimes on a steamboat.
Amity Square apparently seems to be a dub edit, as the Japanese version just says it's a nature park, which explains the whole question I had at the beginning. So, there we go.
I mean, the dubs just take their own
interpretations.
Yeah, they just sort of do things.
Sometimes it works, but like this case, someone was trying to be fancy and didn't check a map.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair.
Yeah.
The map is really convoluted. It doesn't give good distances.
I mean, in Galar, it definitely doesn't. But like, I'll say this one is okay. Having played Platinum recently. Trying to do some honey tree Munchlax hunting, but we'll see how that goes.
Spread that honey.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. There's 2 trees, supposedly, where I can get it.
I like that idea until I realized that I had to like check it every day, and I'm like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah, well, I'll give you updates as we go through this. Okay. But yeah, we get some more mentions of Dialga and Palkia. There's a whole museum episode about the other orb. Just really solid. Like, I think this balances Cynthia's character well in a way that's very like explicit, but also just subtle in terms of connecting her to the mythology of the region and setting her up as someone who's going to be important to the plot later on. Yeah. Any other final thoughts? I think we could talk forever about Cynthia here.
Yeah, I mean, skip SteamBoat Willies.
Yeah, that's fair.
Watch Top-Down Training, which still, like, the title, again, all of them, doesn't really make sense.
Like, is that even a pun? I don't...
No. It's not. It's basically saying that the person who is at the top is training the person at the bottom. Like, top-down usually means that the commands are coming from the top and you just follow it.
Okay.
And I guess that's what happens. It's just a weird title.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Because really, again, the Japanese translation of
simple.
Enter Champion Cynthia would have been a better title.
Totally, yeah. Well, anyway, this has been it for episode... Hold up. I can remember this. Episode 23 of Sights on Sinnoh. Woo! Thank you, Greg, so much for being here, as always. This was a pleasure.
Thank you. Yes.
And if people want to find you, where can they see your hot takes on Cynthia and Diamond and Pearl episode titles?
You can find me and everything that I do on Twitter at White Wing. It's the easiest place to find me.
Perfect. I thought, Lysander's your Twitch. That's totally different. Okay, okay. I was like, are you sure that? Yeah, that makes sense.
I am sure. Twitter is the only one that's different. Because it was taken when I started my Twitter.
No! Oh, man.
Well, now that it's a thing, like, that's my Twitter handle. Mm-hmm. And so, like, to change it now is more chaos than it's worth.
That's fair. Totally. And I'm over on Twitter on Will Be Teasing, TIZING. Also on Twitch, sometimes editing episodes of the podcast if you want to jump on in there and share your thoughts. You can also do that down below in the comments of this YouTube video, as well as subscribe, like it if you want to see more, and share with friends as we get closer to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But as always, I've been Will.
I'm Greg.
And we'll see you in Sinnoh. Until next time, have a good one.
Bye.